Good afternoon, and welcome to episode 36 of the Ripper Podcast.
Look, I'm not saying you should play college football till you're 28 years old, but it does make for an entertaining story and a good quarterback.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 53 of the Ripper Podcast. Happy Veterans Day, a special Monday episode coming to you. We're here going to be recapping a massive weekend in sports. Big college football Saturday slate that we'll be going over. A couple of massive Sunday night football or Sunday games, including the Sunday night football game. So we appreciate you taking your time out of your day to join us here on this Veterans Day Monday, episode 53. Elsen will join me in just a little bit, but we are going to get on started. I want to start today by sharing this picture here with Veterans Day, and you can see the background and whatever, but this was posted on the Ripper brand social medias. It was our, Veterans Day post, but specifically this picture is of my grandpa, and this is obviously in his young days and him as a, soldier. I believe he was in the National Guard, and so not just to him, but to all veterans of all different branches, all different kinds. Thank you for your service. Obviously, is the brave and unselfish sacrifice that you make for every one of us citizens and for our freedoms. And through a kind of a crazy and very divided election season. One thing that we can all agree on is that we are thankful and appreciative of our veterans and the service that they serve to our country and each person that is proud to call themselves an American. And so we appreciate that. And I thought this was fitting because it's one. I mean, I posted it last year as well on Veterans Day, this specific picture, because it is my grandpa. It's meaningful. I think it's kind of a cool picture to see. The setup and what it was, back in the day. And so we appreciate the service and the sacrifice of all of our veterans, not only here, but abroad and wherever you might be who's watching today. So we appreciate that. And I just want to take a quick moment and say that. But let's get it started in a little bit of Friday Night Lights. One area team still around, and they're still surviving. It's the Belleville Wildcats, staying alive. They took down Lancaster 35-32. Last week, Wednesday, I did say that this was a very winnable game. I'm not going to take credit for it at all, but I said it was a winnable game. I think Lancaster, when you think about a team, especially as an 8 seed that you're going to be playing in round 3 of the playoffs, you don't really imagine a 3-loss team being your opponent. But that's the glory of high school football playoffs, is anybody can win on any given day. And as a result, you get some of these matchups. Belleville, a team that came in under 500 coming into playoffs, they got hot. I think they won all but one of those second half of the regular season games, taking on a Lancaster team that we've seen a little bit. They've played some of our local schools, not Belleville in the regular season, but just based in the conference they're in. And so we've seen them a little bit. 3-loss team. They're not a bad squad, very efficient on both sides of the ball. But this is a Belleville team that they got quarterback play that's efficient. They're going to keep the ball, high completion percentages, keeping the ball in their hands, not turning the ball over. And then Logan Dirk in that run game just dominating between the tackles, however they need to get it done. They're getting the yards, and they're obviously putting up points, 35. So high-scoring game in this one, but Belleville continues to roll. We'll preview their game coming up on Wednesday's episode, but round 4, they're heading to a neutral site. They're coming up to my neck of the woods, Oconomowoc, or as they call it around here, Ocon. Something that I've kind of learned is some of these Milwaukee suburbs have short names and different names, like Tosa, as they say, or Ocon. And I'm sure I'll continue to learn more. But Belleville, Lancaster, 35-32. The local team continues to make their Cinderella run. It'd be crazy if we see an 8 seed make it all the way to the playoffs, one game, or to the state championship, one game away from doing that. Well, let's keep her moving here. Elsen Gratz is going to join us now. We're going to get into the daily draft. Elsen Gratz from Tulsa. How are we doing today?
It's officially sweatshirt weather down here. It's starting to chill out, and honestly, I don't mind. It kind of brings me back.
No Hawaiian shirt for you today.
Might never be a
Obviously,
Hawaiian shirt. Maybe not on this iteration of the podcast. Not for quite a while. It's starting to dip down to the mid 40s or so. We can deal with that. I mean,
yeah.
that's easy stuff in Wisconsin.
You're a Wisconsinite through in and out, and so you're able to deal with that cool weather, and that's something you can probably brag on. Some other Oklahonians. What do they refer to themselves as down there in
I
OK?
think we're Oklahomans, but what I refer to them as is people who don't know how to drive in the snow.
Yeah, there you go. Are you expecting any snow here this year?
Oh, usually once or twice, maybe get an inch or two. Doesn't stick. It does, however,
Disgusting.
shut down all the highways pretty much because, again, don't have the experience.
Well, that's going to be nice for a college student like yourself, not have to. Does college shut down? Although, because I'm assuming you can walk to most of
Yes,
your campus.
most classes I've heard do get canceled if there's any snow on the ground.
Really, lucky you. Lucky you.
Unbelievable.
I think one thing that I'm not looking forward to is the dead heart of winter walking to classes. I think rainy days suck. Today was extremely windy, and it's obviously pretty bitter and pretty cold, and I'm not looking forward to the days where there's going to be a foot of snow on the ground and you got to be traipsing through that to try and get to a class. It's not necessarily something I'm looking forward to, but it's part of the college life. Here we are.
When I toured Eau Claire, I really liked it. I thought it was a beautiful campus, but it's big and it's spread out. And there was a bridge I'd have to walk over every day heading over the river. Oh my God, that would have been so cold.
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt about it. Also, let's get into the daily draft today. I would say I had a whopping victory in last week's daily draft. I was quite proud of myself, although I don't think I had much competition. With all due respect, your pickleball dub didn't quite get the job done for your list. I think I won like 92% to 8%, so not exactly what you were looking for there.
People don't know it's good.
I suppose they didn't. They just. I don't think
You
they
should have
quite.
included the gift card. If you included the fact that we are raking in gift cards, that would have been my dub.
That's true. That's true. You got that trusty coin on you. Let's get a flip in here
Yes, I
today.
do. It's a penny today. We're flipping small change. Here we go.
Happens.
What's the call?
I'm gonna go with tails.
Does tails ever fail? No, it does not. Tails
Tails.
is
That's
the
huge.
call. You'll pick first.
Sweet. This is an interesting one. Before we get started, I think I built my list based on broadcasters who are still currently broadcasting and alive. I'm not sure if you have any like all time. Are you doing the all time list?
I have a handful that are all time.
Okay, so do we want to go all time or should we say current? I'm okay with going all time.
I think I like all time as well.
Okay. Let's do all time. In that term, I'm gonna go with probably, in my opinion, the GOAT of broadcasting. I'm gonna go with John Madden.
He was definitely on my list. I'm going to stick with the all time theme, and we're going to go Vince Scully in the world of baseball. Rest in peace. And then this is a way overdraft. I fully acknowledge that, but I know he's come under some fire recently for lacking some of the enthusiasm, but in his prime, Gus Johnson was fantastic. His call of the Brandon Stokely walk-off tip drill where he was just screaming Stokely at the top of his lungs, that's an all-timer in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't even. Gus Johnson is actually, I feel like, older than we think. I'm not 100%
He's
sure.
starting to get up there.
I think he is, and I still think he's a great broadcaster. He was on my list. I think it's hard to go wrong with him. I'm gonna go with here. I got two picks. I'm gonna go with Al Michaels. I think he's just a storied guy. He does obviously Thursday Night Football now, but I think he's an iconic voice of Sunday Night Football. Obviously the Olympic or the Miracle Game for hockey. That's one of my favorites of him. But I'm gonna go Al Michaels as my second pick. I think that he's one of the best all time. And then I think this is I don't know. I feel like if you're a college football guy, you have to love him. I mean, he's my personal, like, hands down, no matter what, my favorite broadcaster in all sports. And in honor of Ben Herbstreit, I'm going to take Kirk. Kirk Herbstreit is one of my favorite human beings. I think he would he's just really good at his job. And I think he's very versatile. He does Thursday Night Football with Al Michaels, so I have that crew. But he's also on the College Game Day, which If you know me well, you know that I get up and watch College Game Day every Saturday morning, 8 a.m. sharp. Sometimes I do fall back asleep, but I do get up and at least turn it on, and we'll catch the best part of the show, which is the game day picks. But Kirk, then he gets on and he calls the ESPN, usually the game of the week with Chris Fowler. He's very good at what he does, and he's by far my favorite sports broadcaster, and so I'm gonna have to go with Kirk.
I knew exactly where you're going there, and I can't fault you for the pick. I'm about to tank my odds here. I fully acknowledge that. But I got to be true to myself, and I'm going to take Joe Buck. I think he is super underrated. I don't know. I mean, you got the enthusiasm of Gus Johnson, and then Joe Buck just deadpan. Sometimes I find him hilarious. I remember he was doing the intro to I think it was a Bucks back when they had Tom Brady and maybe Saints game. I don't know. He just seemed drunk and over it. And part of me appreciates that. And then I know that this is the last pick, Mr. No, it's not. You got
I got one more
left. This isn't Mr. Relevant. This is an overdraft. But let's go with Bucks legend Sidney Moncrief. I need all three sports.
Sidney Moncrief. How do you even spell his name?
Moncrief, I believe.
Okay. The Joe Buck pick, I agree with. I think it's hard. People have their opinions on him, but I feel like every good broadcaster has their listeners' opinions on them, whether it's good or bad. I think, obviously, back to his Fox days when he was doing the World Series, he was iconic. Now he's doing Monday Night Football and always had the game of the week for Fox as well. So he's a hard guy to disagree with, and I think he's a good pick. I personally think he's one of the iconic voices of the NFL and sports in general. So I'm gonna go with a guy who I had the privilege to listen to him, and he was probably the only bright spot of the Dallas Cowboy game yesterday. But I was able to listen to him, and he does CBS Golf, which is something I really do enjoy as well, and the Masters and some other big tournaments in the PGA world. And so I'm gonna go with Jim Nantz. I think he's got to be. I mean, he's just one of the hello friends. He's a wholesome announcer, and I think you get the true version of himself, not some fake person when he gets behind a microphone and a camera.
The only player remaining on my list would have been Kevin Harlan, so I think that was a good slate of picks. However, I do want to ask you a question. What do you think about Tom Brady right now?
Tom Brady might be the worst announcer that I've ever heard with a microphone. I quite literally.
God.
I am a type of a person where, a lot of people, they hate, Joe Buck or Troy Aikman. Some people hate Tony Romo. Some people hate, now here's a guy with Chris Collinsworth. People have their opinions, and I think that's part of the game, but I've never really hated anybody. Like I just grow to appreciate them and their voice. But Tom Brady is the first person that I've hated. And I never really I didn't necessarily not like him when he was in the NFL as a player. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, it's Tom Brady. And I think the Deflategate and obviously just being the best. But, I respected him. He's the GOAT. Like, I really didn't hate him. But, boy, he's just, like, so fake. And he's just corny. And it's like he's the highest paid announcer, and he's in the position, and he's got the hype that he does because people want to understand what the GOAT's perspective on football is, and I don't feel like we're getting that right now. We're getting what was he talking about yesterday? The guys holding down the tent of the 49ers game, and like it's an interesting perspective, but I don't want to hear some corny line that you picked up on and see your all your Botox on your face that looks like, I just give me some good football analysis where I think other people present that Tom Brady is just not right now.
I thought over his first maybe 6 or so weeks in the booth, I thought he stuck out like a sore thumb because it wasn't just that he was corny. It was like he's corny and patronizing in the worst way, and you never know when he's going to end his sentence. Over the last few weeks, I feel like he's starting to settle in where he's at least listenable. Like when I was watching the Bucks Niners game, I thought you could work with that. I don't think he's adding a lot of value. He obviously shouldn't be the A team right now. They're still doing a lot of projection, hoping he gets better, but it's been rough early returns on Tom Brady's broadcasting career.
I'm sort of going to change gears just because I'm curious. And one thing that I absolutely hate, especially being a fan of a team that is on the other side of the country, but being in Tulsa and what you're used to being, in Wisconsin, are your markets different? Are you seeing different games that you can watch, just based on like the CBS Fox games, or are they
Oh
somewhat like,
man.
have you noticed anything that way?
Yeah, I've had to watch a whole lot of Cowboys, unfortunately.
Really? You
It's
lucky
been rough.
man.
It's been rough. Yep.
Yeah. That's just one thing. Like obviously, usually it's the noon game. I actually the when you get to the 3:30 game, it's not actually that bad. But when you get like that noon game, usually if the Bears, the Packers, even the Lions, like if any of those teams are playing, there's no chance of getting a Cowboy game. But luckily, the Cowboys having the market that they do, typically, if there's no other local game, they're going to be the featured game just because so many people watch them. But um, yeah, it just sucks. These blackout markets, and it's just like, all right, I guess I'm watching the game on Red Zone or something, and it's almost like a miracle when you get a 12 o'clock Cowboy game to watch.
Speak for yourself, man. I wish that we were getting the Cowboys games blacked out down here.
Yeah, after, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, I'm sure, but after that going down, I think we might be in the bag. We might be no bueno. You must say no bueno. But let's keep it moving here with some college football. Let's get to college football before we start ripping on my Cowboys, my poor Cowboys. I should say, let's recap the daily draft. I went John Madden, Al Michaels, Kirk Herbstreit, and Jim Nance. Elson went Vince Scully, Gus Johnson, Joe Buck, and Sidney Moncrief is our pick. So you are going to be able to go on to Instagram specifically and vote, and I'll make sure to put the poll
I was
actually
gonna say,
on
is
the
it gonna be a
post.
poll this time?
Yep, I had to resort to the story. So, um, but yeah, I'll make sure to get that one right this time as well. College football, massive week. Quite a few crazy games, I guess you could say. We had a couple upsets. Last few weeks we've had a handful of upsets, and just this fun cycle of this new era of college football. Start with the little Big Ten speed round. Minnesota and Rutgers, classic Big Ten game, but Rutgers get the job done 24-19.
I think you hit it right on the head with classic Big Ten game. Two good defenses squaring off. Rutgers didn't have star running back Kyle Monungai in this one. It didn't matter. Ultimately, the defense just forced a few more negatives. They got in the backfield a lot, and they end Minnesota's 4-game win streak. So just two good teams going at it hard like you see in the Big Ten.
Indiana gets by against Michigan 20-15.
Well, first of all, we knew that if Michigan was going to be in this game, it was going to be the defensive line. They were going to need to out physical Indiana. And on the D line, they absolutely did that. They got quite a few sacks. They certainly generated a lot of pressure. And as you see, that kind of put a cap on Indiana's offense. But Indiana's defense really showed a lot in this one. I think that Indiana checked a box as well, even though you want to see more points from them. They showed that they can handle physical offenses that want to run the football. They shut down Michigan's ground game, and we know that this Michigan team can't pivot when they need to pass, and ultimately that's all it took.
We got a little bit of referee controversy in a couple games, but let's get to one of the upsets this weekend. Virginia over number 18 Pitt, 24-19.
Did you see the out of position play that kind of decided this game?
I actually did not know.
So let me set the scene. I think there are like 5 minutes left. Virginia's trying to run out the clock. They're playing with the lead on Pittsburgh. And it comes down to like a 4th and 1 on, I think, somewhere around the Pittsburgh 40-yard line. And this is like a 4th and like maybe 4 feet. We're not talking like a few inches here. And Virginia comes out and they run the quarterback sneak and they get stuffed. And they get pretty clearly stuffed. That was not going to be a close call. And you see both the referees run and they kind of converge on the pile. And then they come over the microphone and say, the referees were not in position. We will replay 4th down. So Virginia hurries back to the line and they come out in the sneak formation. And this time they hand it off to one of the tush push guys on a sweep. They get the 1st down, and that kind of ices the game. Now, Pittsburgh shouldn't have been in that situation in the first place. Their quarterback situation is just poor. Eli Holstein, their starter, who has a knack for turning the ball over this season, he got knocked out early. The backup came in, went 4 for 12 with 2 picks. So maybe you give this one an asterisk for Pitt, both because they lost their starting QB, but Man, what an unsatisfying way to lose a football game. The refs are not in position.
Yeah, that's just one that's like hard to swallow, no matter what. I mean, you hit it on the head with Pitt. Should probably not have been in that position
They let
against a
Virginia
team like
run for
Virginia.
173 yards.
You're right. I mean, it's probably just not something that they should have been playing better. But man, it's just when it's just like when you say, I feel like especially in youth sports, growing up, like, oh, the referees lost us that game. They were just so bad and everything. But this is like a clear example where it's like they quite literally put, like there you can pinpoint one specific situation that pretty much resulted in them causing that game to not go Pitt's way.
And it
I
was
don't
ugly.
know. It's hard to blame a game on a referee, and because there's always like, other things that could have happened, but you get treated lightly, but I think it's pretty fair to say that that one might be on the referees. But anyways, let's keep it moving. Tight one in the Big 12. BYU survives Utah 22-21.
It's funny that the Pittsburgh game, that officiating thing happened. And then in this BYU versus Utah game, this is where we get the Utah AD claiming that the game was stolen by bad officiating in his post-game presser. I really disagree. I think that what he's referring to is I guess maybe slightly iffy holding call against Utah with BYU driving late into the fourth quarter. I thought it was a completely fair holding call. I thought there were some good angles that showed that the defensive back kind of got the hand up in the receiver's pads. And I mean, Utah played them close, and that's commendable. Obviously, they've had some serious injuries at the quarterback position. BYU holds on and moves up in the rankings, but I think that that's a bad look as an athletic director to blame the officiating for this loss of all losses.
Yeah, no kidding. Missouri gets a big one over Oklahoma, 30-23. Big strip sack at the end of that game. But also, in your hate for Missouri, I think this is a quality win.
Oh, no way. They should not have won this game. We touched on how this was maybe going to be a messy one. We were probably going to come away feeling that one team lost this game more than one team won it. And that is absolutely the case. The Sooners fumbled 6 times. I think one of them was a muff. One was by a receiver, one by a running back, and 3 by Jackson Arnold, looking like a freshman out there. And ultimately, Missouri didn't have any offense until deep into the fourth quarter. They scored a touchdown or 2, got themselves back in it from behind. Jackson Arnold takes the snap, trying to carry his team down the field, rolls out, gets strip sacked, and Missouri runs it into the end zone for the go-ahead scoop and score. I don't know if I'd call that a quality win. Missouri does enough to get by a suspect Oklahoma team. I guess they kind of showed something, but ultimately, my reaction to this game is more, wow, what's going on in Oklahoma than, oh, Missouri's back.
Yeah. Question mark that's a good question. What's going on in Iowa State? 2 straight losses now for the Cyclones, a team that I had in my top 5. They're looking like they're going to cruise their way to a Big 12 championship, but Kansas has something else to say, 45-36.
I just don't think that Iowa State is near as good as their early season record indicated. I'm actually friends with a guy down here who happens to be an Iowa State fan, and apparently they had quite a few injuries on defense that in some of these early season matchups against weaker competition, I mean, Kansas is actually one of the better teams that they've faced. And I think Kansas was 2-7 heading into this game with a couple of tough one-score losses. Iowa State had some defensive injuries that maybe got a little bit covered up playing teams that can't pass the ball and that won't beat you up front. Well, Kansas is hungry, and they didn't let that happen. Devin Neal, their star tailback, 18 carries for 116 and 2 touchdowns. Kansas they scored at will. And Iowa State's offense, still a quality unit. Rocco Becht had a little bit of a comeback game. He's tailed off as of late, and he went out there and he had a really strong performance. Jalen Null, excellent wide receiver, going to be a big part of this year's wide receiver draft class. 8 catches for 167 and 2 touchdowns. He was taking the top off the Kansas defense. But when you give up 45 points to Kansas, I think that kind of says a lot about what kind of football team you are.
Yeah. Yeah, this is something interesting. I think, um, you know, the thing that I really like about college football is, like like you mentioned, kind of a struggling Kansas team getting towards the back half and last couple of games of the regular season. In college football, there's a reason to still win games. Whereas like the NFL, it's like, okay, it's almost more beneficial for us to continue to lose. They
You
call
want
it
to lose
tanking
games, get a higher
because
draft
they
pick.
want to they want to get a better draft pick. But college football, there's no reward for really being the worst team, and as a result, you get Kansas beating Iowa State, and that's why it's so important and so impressive for a team to win all 12 games of the regular season because this was a clear trap game. Kansas is a team I think's better than the record.
Oh
I
yeah,
believe they still have quarterback Jalen
Jalen
Daniels.
Daniels, he's fighting for his NFL stock. That's another factor here. At this point, he's fighting to get a camp look in the league, and he had a good game in this one.
Right, and that's just the glory of college football, and especially I think it's something that's just going to continue to get enhanced by the new 12-team playoff in this new era that we're in because there's so much to prove for teams, and there's so many teams that are going to be not undefeated. And when we see these undefeated teams now, I think it's going to go down in the history books because it's going to become so rare, and we're going to see a lot more teams like Kansas who are not who are they're better than what their record shows, and they're going to be able to kind of play these trap games, and it worked out in Kansas's favor. Um, let's keep her moving here. Miami, Georgia Tech. This is a game that was, maybe. I mean, Georgia Tech is they're a talented football team, and they pulled it out against number 4 Miami, a team that kind of they finally cracked the top 5 in the poll. They looked like they're kind of getting that respect they deserve. They really haven't played anybody all year, but then Georgia Tech rolls around and they beat them 28-23.
Miami's walked a little close to the fire quite a few times this season. They've needed
Mm-hmm.
quite a few comebacks, quite a few last second one score wins. And finally, it comes for everybody. Maybe we'll get into that when we talk about the Chiefs. But Georgia Tech, good football team, clearly hungry. They were not scared of Miami's ranking, and they just played a good offensive game where they kept Miami off the field. They ran 46 times for 275 yards. They 100% controlled the clock, 64% on third down. And Cam Ward, they've needed him to be a superhero to be coasting to all these wins, or I should say, pulling out all these wins late. And he was still good, but when you have a game script like this, a few mistakes, I think he turned the ball over once. He probably put it on the ground another team and resulted in a loss of yards off the sack. A couple of mistakes is all that it took for Miami to fall in this one.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Colorado, how about them? They're looking like a team that they kind of got a clear road to winning that Big 12 and seeing themselves inside that college football playoff. That would be something crazy to be talking about, but they get a nice one after the Tortillas and Texas Tech, 41-27.
They're starting to get hot. Now, I still think Colorado has weaknesses. Shedeur Sanders got sacked 7 times. That's kind of been the book on him. They averaged 2.5 yards a carry with their running backs, 2 for 13 on third downs. It's not all sunshine and rainbows for Colorado. But what makes me so excited is that the Colorado defense actually kind of showed up in this one. I know they gave up 27 points to Texas Tech, but that's because the offense actually punted the ball so often. I think that Colorado came away with a defensive score. They stuffed the run. That's what Colorado's going to need. The weakness on them has been the defense. We know what this offense can do with Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I'm going to be totally honest about that, but not going to count them out either.
Alabama LSU, this is a game in Death Valley, prime time, all the hype, college game day, but Alabama came in. It was second half of the game for sure. It was pouring rain. Alabama gets the job done in a big way, 42-13. Jalen Milroe, is he, we'll recap the game, but is he maybe the number 1 quarterback in the draft right now?
He's not for me. I think that he's looked a lot like the player he was last year, where he's got a ton of physical talent. He is a heck of a rusher, probably the top rushing quarterback in this year's class. I know Cam Ward is mobile too, but he's got an excellent arm. He knows how to throw on the move, but I still don't see him getting the ball out on time. I still think he's hot and he's cold, but in this year's class, I'm not going to rule him out. I think he's a day 2 pick in most draft classes, but he could absolutely go in the first round in this one. And I think that he's the right player to be talking about in this game. We covered how this was going to be Milroe versus Nussmeier, and that is exactly what it was. Milroe passed the test with his physical tools in the rain. Nussmeier, not so much. He's been getting kind of cold, and we're going to recap that more later. On the defensive end for Alabama, a huge game for their linebacker, Jihad Campbell. We maybe don't talk about it as much, but linebacker is also wide open in this year's draft class. He was making plays against the pass, against the run, got into the backfield, sacked Nussmeier a couple of times. This is a huge win for Bama. They're a team that I think is making a statement right now.
Yeah, they're looking good. This is a complete elimination game, kind of one of the first ones that we've seen here in college in the the new era of college football that we've been talking about all day. But Alabama seems like they're staying alive. They're making a point. To me, they have the most quality wins out of any team in the country right now. But 2 losses still, and so we'll see how those losses, what they look like by the end of the year. But Alabama gets a big one. It seems like LSU's playoff hopes, unless something crazy happens here in the last couple weeks, probably not going to be looking good. Georgia, Ole Miss. How about Jackson Dart? After all the controversy about him going out on Halloween and this and that, and the kind of the controversial player he's become, but Carson Beck and the Bulldogs just don't look like their normal selves. Ole Miss gets the job done 28-10.
Called it. The sky, though, is falling for Carson Beck. He has been ice cold in his last few matchups. We're going to talk about that when we get to my risers and fallers segment as well. Georgia struggled to move the ball, and Ole Miss's defensive line, don't get me wrong, it was a good day for Jackson Dart. He did his job. They put up enough points. But this defensive line that Ole Miss has, you could plug that into the NFL, and they'd probably be the 30th best line in the league. They took over 5 sacks, 4 tackles for loss against the run. Georgia just could not put up points. I thought it was going to at least be a close game. I picked Ole Miss. I'm proud of that pick. I thought it was going to be decided by 1 score. I thought that they looked like clearly the better team in this one.
No doubt about it. A couple big guys, last couple, Alabama, LSU, Colorado, Miami, Georgia, Ole Miss. A couple big guys in the draft. Elsen, let's get to your draft risers and fallers here. Take it away. Stage is yours.
All right, so I don't necessarily like to talk too much about offensive linemen, but I feel like I have to talk about left tackle Wyatt Milam for West Virginia. He had a great game against Cincinnati. Didn't give up any sacks or hits. 317 pounds and 6'6". He moves guys in the run game. But the reason that I have to talk about him right now isn't necessarily what he did against Cincinnati. He hasn't allowed a pressure on the entire season. That is insane. He has not let a single guy by him with a free run at his quarterback this entire year. He's a name that we knew heading into this year's draft cycle, but he's establishing himself as quite possibly the best tackle in this year's class. Kelvin Banks from Texas is having a really good year as well, but we saw Joe Alt rise last year. I think that this could be a Joe Alt caliber player. And then on the other side of the ball, defensive end Princely Uman Mielen. He has a brother who's in the college game who I think is Kingsley Uman Mielen, potentially. No, I think he's just Prince. He's Prince Uman Mielen, but this is Prince Lee. He's a 5th-year senior. He played at Florida for quite a while. And the reason that he's been in college for 5 years is because this is an athletic dude who needed to learn how to rush the passer. That's the feedback NFL teams gave him last year. He's got the athletic tools to be a day 1, day 2 caliber player, and that's what he's starting to show. 2 sacks, one of them being a strip sack, was huge in that game against Georgia. 6 total pressures as well. He's got 9.5 sacks this year. I think that this is an ascending player and a guy that we could see taken near the end of round 1. And then every week I like to add a new guy to the board. This year it's going to be Mekhi Hughes from Tulane. Let's backtrack that a little, Ethan. I appreciate it. He's not necessarily like this Ashton Genty type of I'm going to beat you on both the ground and as a pass catcher sort of player. He's pretty much a pure runner. He's stocky. He's built like a bowling ball. He runs through guys. 10 broken tackles against Temple. And now the reason that I had to shout him out right here isn't because of what he did against Temple. We know that Temple doesn't have this immaculate defense. So going off for 150 and 2 scores, all right, that's impressive. But this is his 5th straight 100-yard game. I think he's got 7 or 8 on the year. This is just a loaded running back class. He's a 3rd-year sophomore. You don't usually see running backs going back to school they want to come out early. The NFL wants to get them while they're young, while they have less tread on the tires. This year's class is so deep. I think it's going to be fascinating to see who declares and who doesn't, because we could see a mid-round period that is just filled to the brim with really exciting young running backs. Going to be a lot of fan favorites drafted next year. And then we have to talk about a couple of big school quarterbacks. And I don't mean to be a downer. I don't mean to regurgitate the same narrative that this year doesn't have any quarterbacks, but I kind of feel like it's Cam Ward and it's Shedeur, who are maybe true first-round talents. We'll see when I actually get to their tape as opposed to just watching them on the broadcast. But Carson Beck was my quarterback one to begin the year. I still only had a second-round grade on him, more of an indictment on everybody else than, oh, I love Carson Beck. And he has been just truly bad over the last 3 weeks. 2 touchdowns and 7 picks. Sometimes interceptions are bad luck. Sometimes the ball gets swatted up at the line and it falls right into the hands of a linebacker. That's not the case with Beck. He has authentically been one of the worst quarterbacks in the nation, not just one of the worst draft prospects.
I'm not sure. I think we might have lost Elsen there. Quite literally frozen. I can't say I've ever seen this before. It could be maybe me. Hopefully he's okay
Couldn't
over
get
there.
much going against an Arkansas defense. Did you lose me for a minute there?
You just straight frozen for like a good 30 seconds maybe, but I think we got you back now, so we're good.
Where did I leave off? Did I leave off at Carson Beck bad or Garrett Nussmeier bad?
You're still on Carson Beck, but I think you're towards the back half of it.
Carson Beck not showing good pocket presence. It's been rough for him. I think he's fallen from a preseason day 2, maybe day 1 in a weak class down into the mid rounds, if that. He's a guy I could see falling around 5, 6. We'll see. Garrett Nussmeier, he had a good early season run. We were looking for guys who might take the reins as QB1. He was putting down a lot of good tape. He's a smart passer, but the arm strength, it's all right. He didn't have a strong day against Arkansas, so a lower level of competition, not as good of a football team. And against Texas A&M and Bama, 2 high-quality schools, he's been making mistakes. He's been picked off 5 times, and those were legit. I still think that in a class where teams are hunting for starting quarterbacks, he could go on day 2, but I'm not overly excited about Garrett Nussmeier at that point, which, hey, maybe that makes me more excited about Shedeur and Cam Ward, who normally I wouldn't be talking up too much. And Jalen Milroe's there too. He's a lot of fun.
I got to say, now Dak's gone, and after the performance that we saw on Sunday, I got to really start paying attention to some of these draft stock stuff because, boy, it seems like the draft actually is going to be interesting with a high-level pick compared to, mid-20s that Cowboys are kind of used to.
I could see Shedeur in blue and white.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Well, we got, a long time, and because if we take Shedeur, that probably means Deion's coming with. So who knows who that would be. But
I want to see Deion and Jerry Jones as this team's GMs.
That could
I
be
think that would work out great.
They might as well start a comedy series after that, just because I don't know. I don't know what to think about it much, right now. It's I remember a couple of years ago when Dak had his ankle injury and kind of, we did win some games with Cooper Rush. Cooper Rush was actually feasible and, able to play, but boy, he looks like he's like Aaron Rodgers bad right now. I mean,
oh, come on.
I mean, he's getting to that point in his career, it seems like. And Trey Lance,
yikes. What a
who
fall.
knows? I'm kind of happy that Trey Lance is getting a little bit of playing time so that maybe we can get to the point where, like, okay, we've actually seen him in real time. Can we just, we know he sucks. Let's just get rid of him? Because I'm kind of sick of this whole, oh, but you got Trey Lance in your back pocket, this whole thing. But, yeah, we'll get into the Cowboy game a little bit later, potentially. But let's keep it moving. Always good stuff there is always Elsen. NFL weekly recap. Kind of a crazy week in the NFL. Started with a great Thursday night football game and a couple good games in the early slate, and then a crazy one to finish out the day yesterday, and kind of a low-key, underwhelming, I don't know, game that I'm not super excited about, but it's got potential. But let's get to the recap first. Thursday Night Football, Bengals and Ravens. This is a crazy game. Jamar Chase quite literally lost one of my fantasy weeks. If he would have just put 20 points up, but instead he put 60. But if he would have just put 20, I would have won, which is still something I wouldn't have wanted to see. But 60 quite literally won it for my opponent. Well, crazy game. Ravens get the job done. Bengals, they went for that inevitable 2-point try to get the win, and they didn't get it, and it's a tough loss for them against a good Ravens team.
Jamar Chase actually won me my week in the Ripper League. I think I would have won regardless, but it was nice to just be able to focus my energy elsewhere. No anxiety about that one after he dropped 55, 60 points. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase gave it everything in this one. The reason that I picked the Ravens pretty comfortably on my weekly picks is I knew that they were going to need a repeat of what we saw the first time between these two teams. It was going to have to be Joe Burrow versus the world. And he went out there and said, yeah, I am that elite quarterback, and I'm going to win us this game. And then they came up short. What a devastating loss this is for Cincinnati. I mean, I feel like no matter how good Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, who was injured for this one, no matter how good they are, I just can't take him seriously right now with a losing record and a terrible defense. Since he had no answers for what the Ravens wanted to do offensively, I know they kind of stopped him a few times, lucked into a few 3-and-outs early on, but ultimately Baltimore was just too strong. I'm interested to get your take on the 2-point conversion. What do you think about the decision and the play call?
Remind me what it was.
So they come out there for the 2-point try, and they kind of run this play where they have Gesicki running all over the formation, and they get it to a point where it's Jamar Chase isolated, completely away from everyone, in perfect position for a fade. And then Zach Taylor runs up the sideline and calls a timeout. And they come out there and they run a different play, and it's like, I think it's a whip route to Gesicki, and he's bracketed, and it's a little high from Burrow, and it goes through his hands, and there was a holding call or whatever. I think they were actually targeting Tanner Hudson, and Jamar Chase doesn't even get a look.
Yeah, I mean, I think I do recall seeing that. I don't know if I actually watched that part of the game live, but when you pay your stars the big money for moments like that, and yeah, this is a regular season game, mid-season, and you're playing the Ravens, who, other than the Chiefs, might be the best team in the AFC, and it's a big game. Thursday Night Football, primetime, nation's watching. I mean, that's a moment, 2-point conversion to win the game. That's a moment you expect your guys to step up, and you pay them to do that. And when you don't even give them that opportunity, I think that's not always a good look, and not always good for the locker room, even, for those guys. But, this Bengals team right now, what's the problem with them? I mean, Jamar and Joe Burrow seem to be like playing high-level football right now. Especially, I mean, yeah, they get off to their slow starts. I think that's something that we've kind of became accustomed to, but they're really struggling right now to just win games. And is it the defense? Is it, the stuff, the people are around Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase? Is it coaching? What are we seeing here, Elsen? What's your, what are you trying to fix if you're the front office of this team?
So they got off to one of their classic slow starts, and I think you're walking close to the fire doing that every season. But don't get me wrong, I think they're a good team right now. The reason I don't think they're great, it's certainly not Joe Burrow. It's certainly not the receivers. I think the offensive play calling is mediocre. They're just asking their dudes to go out there and win. They're not giving them any help. I mean, on that 2-point conversion call, why is it not going to Jamar Chase? They've had zero answers for him all game, and you're going to run a double coverage whip route to Tanner Hudson. That's your answer. I like the choice to go for it. I don't like the call. And then on defense, they're outclassed. They don't really have guys in the secondary. They don't have any pass rush outside of Trey Hendrickson, who's just getting double teamed every single snap. It's tough to live like that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. A couple of NFC North games felt like maybe we were watching Big Ten football, some of the way these games went, but rookie quarterback Caleb Williams, struggling right now. That offense for the Chicago Bears not looking good. Patriots, though, 19-3. How about that?
Shane Waldron, the offensive coordinator for the Bears, I think he's got to go. He hasn't shown anything. This isn't a team that does anything creative to make life easier on their franchise quarterback. And how many times have we seen the same story with Chicago? Don't get me wrong. As a Packers fan, I love it. But they bring in a talented young QB, and then they screw him up. because they've got no idea what's going on offensively. To me, it looks like more of the same. We all watched Caleb Williams at USC. We knew the amount of talent that he had. He just straight up looked bad in this game. He's holding the ball way too long. He looked weirdly inaccurate. He was sailing out route after out route, just the kind of throws where the wide receiver looks at it and just goes right by his head. They don't even make an attempt to play the ball because he's off by 3 feet. Caleb looks like he's in a funk, and I think that you got to hope that that's on the offensive play calling. Waldron needs to go. And then for the Patriots, they did a good job beating a bad Bears defense. Things just look all the way wrong in Chicago. I don't know. After watching this one, I come out more, wow, the Bears are really, really bad, and they are frankly overrated at 4-5, and the Patriots are good. But you do have to know Chicago, they were missing their 2 top offensive tackles. Patriots pass rush, which is one of the worst in the league. It did get home. Keon White, defensive end's a name to know for New England. But, man, things are bad in Chicago, and I'm here for it.
Things are bad, and I think, yeah, the offensive coordinator probably should go too, but I think Matt Eberflus needs to be right behind him walking out that door. Matt Eberflus did say that, after I believe they've lost 3 in a row now, that there are changes to be made, but to me, he's part of the issue. I've never liked him. I never thought he was a good coach. And now he's kind of got his opportunity. This is like a no excuses, like, let's see what you actually got moment. And he's not living up to the hype right now, quite frankly. And I think he's got to go. I think he will by the end of the year. But on the other side, Drake May outshine. It was a battle of rookie QBs. It's kind of a, it's one of those that who's going to be the best guy that come out of this. And Patriots got the job done. That defense showed up big time. Drake May said phones down in his press conference. Let's clap it up for the defense. I mean, it seems like the Patriots, they got a good culture. They're a team that's well coached. They're good discipline. I think this is a Patriots team that is it's going to be not quite turn around overnight, but I think they're looking forward into the right direction. And for the Bears, I think, Caleb Williams, I think his junior is, not his last year. I'm sure, I don't know what he actually was classified as, but his last year was not as good as the year before for him at USC. And, that last year, the USC as a team wasn't super great. And to me, the biggest, stat for a quarterback is wins and losses. And we kind of saw his inability to win games. And, it was Caleb Williams was throwing for 350 yards and not getting any help anywhere else in USC. But, yeah, we saw, that Notre Dame game I just think back to. And obviously, as a Notre Dame fan, I'm happy about that. But he just looked horrible in that game. And, he faced these opponents. But I think Caleb Williams is going to be fine. I think the Bears, before he does get too far, and I think that even if you wait the entire season, I think it could be to that point. But they got to get Matt Eberflus, get that offensive coordinator out of there. They got stars on that team. I think Rome Odunze is going to be really good. They got some good young players offensively and defensively, and they got to make some changes in there. And I think this is going to be a pretty good head coaching cycle for some new guys to come into the play. And I think there could be good opportunity for the Bears to potentially get right in this one and see how that goes. But Vikings and Jaguars 12-7. What a boring game. A couple, interesting teams. But Sam Darnold, boy, he's just really kind of going downhill.
This one was a terrible game to watch. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I think all 3 of Sam Darnold's picks, I think they were all for 1 in the red zone. So that was really costly. They actually moved the ball pretty well. Even Darnold made some throws to get him down into the red zone. But then he was just missing guys, making bad decisions. I think that we did learn something from this game, even though the Vikings won it. And that's no matter how good things are, this Jag secondary is terrible. They might very well be the worst in the league. They just got Tyson Campbell, who's a good cornerback. I don't know how much that matters. No matter how good things are for the Vikings and how bad things are for the other team, Sam Darnold still might throw 3 picks. And so I think that makes it really challenging for them to have Super Bowl aspirations if they're going to need to win probably 4 games in a row to win the Super Bowl. Is he really going to go 4 games not self-destructing? I don't know. So I come away concerned in that way. Defensively, they're still really good. Obviously, they held the Mac Jones Jaguars to 7 points. They stopped him time and time again. Mac Jones turned it over 2 and 3 times. He looks like Mac Jones would look with a not very aware receiving group on a short week as starter, preparing for this one. So good sign for the Vikes, D. We know what they can do against bad teams, but they stopped their slide, I guess, but they won this one ugly.
Yeah, definitely an ugly game. One, this was just, when you're an undefeated team, and I'm moving on to the next game, by the way. I'm not talking about the Vikings anymore, but when you're an undefeated team, you just find ways to win. And this was a
That
clear
they made a deal
evidence.
with the devil. Yes.
Yeah, but good coaching. Really good coaching. Not just head coach, not just offensive coordinator, but defense coordinator, special teams coordinator, position coaches. This is just a job of execution. And obviously a blocked field goal is, very, very rare in terms of, the amount of times they're attempted. But um, this is something that they obviously prepared for. They knew exactly where they're going to apply their pressure. But the blocked field goal for the Chiefs over the Broncos, 16-14 dub for the Chiefs to stay undefeated. This is kind of a crazy moment in the season.
I'm going to have almost the opposite take. And I'm going to say we've seen all this good luck for Kansas City, and some of it is real. Some of it is veteran players like Mahomes and Kelsey who spark fear in the hearts of their opponents when they're driving down the field with the chance to put it away. Some of it's good coaching and saving good play design for the right times. Some of it is just good luck, blocking a last-second field goal against a team you probably shouldn't have been close with. I think they're vulnerable. And I think if they go up against the Lions or the Bills, do they have the Bills next week?
Yes.
Man, I don't like it, but I might have to pick Buffalo. What the Broncos actually did, and this is a really good Broncos defense. They can shut down both the run and the pass. They plugged up the Chiefs' run game. Kareem Hunt couldn't get anything going. Mahomes had to pass more times than you want to when you have DeAndre Hopkins and nothing else essentially, and they just stuck Surtain on him, and they kind of shut down Hopkins. Ultimately, the Chiefs get it done because they block the field goal and because the Broncos' offense isn't any good. This is a good Kansas City defense, but I don't think they're the best team in the NFL. Is that going to bite me when they win the Super Bowl again this year for the three-peat? Yes. Yes, it is. But I got to say what I think is true, and I don't think that the Chiefs are the best.
So you think that them blocking that field goal was luck at the end of that game?
Here's what I'll say. Obviously, to block a field goal, it's like you made the play. You got to make a good play to block a kick. But say some quarterbacks, no matter how good the defense plays, they can drive down the field. They can, like Mahomes, we see from him sometime. He uses his legs at the right moments. He makes the right throws. For you to block a field goal, the other team has to screw up. It's not something that you can do because you're good. It's something you do because you're ready and the other team isn't. And so I don't think when it comes down to a match against the Bills or Ravens or whoever, I don't think they can count on that team's special teams screwing up.
Yeah, I think I agree with you to an extent. I don't know how much of a mess up there really was in the fact that that specific offensive lineman. I forget what his name was, but he, other than him having poor form and technique, I mean, to me, this is a situation where the Chiefs and specifically their special teams coordinator saw on film that this is a weak point in their field goal protection, and they felt as that that is going to be the specific location on that offensive line that for the field goal that they want to attack and apply their pressure. They want to line up their best field goal blocking people against, and they feel they can get the best push against them. To me, I almost feel like this is something that didn't just happen. I mean, this is something I think that they prepared for during the week and realized and saw on film that that's a place where they're going to attack. And so that's something that they took time out of practice during the week and tried to ensure that they had the best rush. And you prepare field goal block and specific things. And obviously me comparing my high school days compared to NFL preparations, no comparison, but you do have specific field goal rushes to attempt something against. But at the same time, there's obviously a little bit more. You dial something up when you need to block it to win the game compared to just a PAT on the first touchdown of the game. There's obviously a little bit of difference, but to me that was something that they saw in preparation coming into this game. And this is a Broncos team that I think is well disciplined. I think they're well coached. I think And we can talk about it in a second. But I think Bo Nix, is looking good right now. But to me, I credit the Chiefs more for making that blocked field goal compared to a fault on the Broncos side.
I don't mind that take. I think it speaks to the attention to detail of this Kansas City team that we see year after year in their ability to use the right play at the right moment. I still come away lower because the Broncos defense is good. I get that. As a Super Bowl contender, you want to have an offense that can go out there and that can put up 23, 24, 28 points, whatever, on a very good defense. I still don't think the Chiefs are the best team in the league, but I'm willing to accept that they have a level of discipline that is unique to them and that is going to keep buying them wins.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, how about Bo Nix though? I mean, he's been looking pretty good. I think when he needs to make a play, he makes the play, and he's not afraid. I think he's got a level of maturity to him where he's at a point where when the pass isn't there, he's not just throwing away or forcing something. He's using his legs, and he's not a guy known for his running ability, but he has it, and he seems to utilize it in the right way.
You know who he reminds me of is Brock Purdy. We've seen
Mm-hmm.
that a lot from Purdy
Yeah.
this year where, at times he's going to make bad decisions. And at times Bo Nix has made bad decisions. But
Right.
for the most part, if the passing lanes are muddy, he's going to tuck it and run and pick up the first and just be annoying in that way. Because you know how demoralizing it's got to be for a defense when you cover everyone up and then the other team's quarterback just breaks contain and picks up 8 yards on the ground. And there's nothing you can do, say, if you're running man coverage. So I have liked what I've seen from Nix. I think he's gotten better almost every week, and he had his team in position to knock off an undefeated opponent. So things are looking good, I think, for the Broncos, even though they lose this one.
No doubt about it. Saints team, a team that new head Coach Riz, as they call him, his first game gets the job done, 20-17 over a Falcons team that seems like you don't know who you're gonna get from them every week when you go against them. But this is a divisional game. The Saints get the job done.
So this was my pick of the week, was the Falcons to cover at -3.5. It didn't go the way that I would have preferred. However, I would like to point out that Younghoe Koo missed sub 55-yard field goals twice, and he was blocked once. So this is a game the Falcons should have won. But they should have won by a lot more than the 3 or 6 points or whatever if Younghoe Koo connected on all those kicks. It was a bad week for kicking around the NFL. Mm-hmm. This is a Saints defense that has been horrible for the past few weeks, just getting worse every week. And then they move on from their head coach. They bring in a new guy who the locker room likes, and the defense picks up. And they go out there and they put the brakes on a Falcons offense that's put up a lot of points on paper. But, man, every week it feels like things are harder than they need to be. I hate the way that the Falcons run this offense. I think they need to get under center. I'm sick of the pistol stuff. I'm sick of them having two plus starters. You put Bijan Robinson or Tyler Algier on the Cowboys, and they're the best player on the team. I'm sick of them getting mediocre production out of those guys, getting mediocre production out of these really talented pass catchers because Kirk Cousins is doing something he's not totally comfortable with. And then defensively, they have so many guys in the secondary. I mean, we talk about Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons, but they have good corners and above-average linebackers too. And they just keep getting gashed by teams that know how to pass the ball a little bit. I mean, Derek Carr and MVS went off in this game. You can't let that happen. I don't know. I come away not liking where the Falcons are headed. I still think the Saints are really bad. I've learned that Derek Carr is good when expectations are low. And when the lights turn on, Derek Carr's lights tend to turn out. So I'm not overly excited about where the Saints are going. But, man, Atlanta, they've built themselves up a nice cushion in the NFC South. They got to get it together in a hurry.
Yeah, 49ers, Jake Moody missed 3 kicks in this game, ended up nailing the game winner. But Deebo Samuel had a little bit of choice words, if you would, for the long snapper. Long snapper didn't appreciate that. Maybe I think he was saying something to Jake Moody.
I think he was talking to Moody.
And then the long snapper defended his guy. He gets the game ball for me. Jake Moody missed 3, but hits the game winner. 4th time's the charm is what they say.
So I've never played organized football. I can't really weigh in on this. I'm going to ask you, let's say that back in your days as a high school quarterback, if Wes was having a rough day with the leg, would you go over and smack him in the head and yell at him, or is that not a normal football thing?
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think. If I was getting paid lots of millions of dollars, I mean, I think maybe the things might be on the line more. I still don't think I would go over and do that type of a thing. It's a valid question though.
I
Sometimes
think
the emotions get the best of you.
that's true. And obviously, Debo is a physical player who plays with a lot of emotion. I don't know. I think that things are wrong in San Fran. Obviously, not a good day for Moody, who is coming back from, I believe, an ankle injury, and you don't know how much that messes with your form. Tabor Pepper, by the way, is the long snapper who came over to defend him. Tabor Pepper's just an awesome name. Had to
Yeah.
shout that out. But San Fran comes away with the win. I don't think that getting CMC back into the lineup has just made everything okay. It still feels like the defense is maybe a little off. The special teams miscues have killed them. I mean, I think they muffed a punt in this one as well. It was, I think, Cowing, the rookie wide receiver, who kind of got a blocker pushed back into him, and it gave the Buccaneers a short field, which is exactly what Tampa Bay needs to punch it in the red zone. They can still figure it out. San Fran has a lot of talent. They're getting healthier. Heartbreaking loss for the Buccaneers. Did you see what Baker did to Nick Bosa?
No, I don't think I saw this.
You got to look it up after the show. Look up Baker Mayfield, Nick Bosa stiff arm. He had Nick Bosa in a chokehold running to the sideline for about 5 seconds as he was waiting for a receiver to come open. And
Really?
he's just putting the stiff arm on Bosa, who's trying to hurt him out of bounds without drawing a roughing the passer flag. In one arm, holding the ball off to the side of his body, he throws about a 15-yard strike to the running back for, I think it was a 4th down conversion to keep their hopes alive. And they still lose. It has been heartbreaker after heartbreaker for Baker. Him and Burrow have to be the two angriest players in the NFL with just getting let down week after week. So the Niners squeak away with one because their roster is better, but they have a lot of getting right to do in a hurry.
Yeah, on the other side for the Bucks, you kind of hit on it with Baker, and it seems like this is a classic Baker story. But man, losing Chris Godwin and now even Mike Evans hasn't been back. Like those two players alone really seem like they've tanked the 49 or the Buccaneers season this year. I mean, seems like since those guys have lost, I mean, this was a Buccaneers team I thought that was probably going to walk, with maybe the exception to the Falcons, but was going to walk to a divisional title. And they're struggling. I think they're 2 games under 500 now. They're a team. They just struggle. And then, like you said, it's just the heartbreakers after heartbreakers. And this is another tough one. But yeah, I think the 49ers, they're not their normal selves. They're not a team that I think is going to go to the Super Bowl unless they get hot at the right time, which is very well possible. But yeah, I think there's some things that need to get cleaned up there. And I think it kind of just started. I think that kind of an issue stemmed from the offseason coming into the season. Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk, both of those guys sitting out. There's a lot of drama, I think, around the locker room, and it wasn't really a focus on preparation, getting ready for the season. There's a lot of are our guys going to be on our team, come week 1.
It was a weird offseason, and it just felt like there was less attention to detail. Special teams have haunted the Niners this year, and they were really lucky that they managed to survive with a win. Honestly, I wish the Bucs won it. I think that they deserved it more. I think it would keep their season afloat where, now they're 4-6. I mean, they still don't have Evans back, and Godwin and Evans were this offense where they want to get the ball out of Baker's hands super quickly. Now it feels like outside of the red zone, all they really have are screens, a little bit of Bucky Irving being one of the most elusive players in football, and Kate Otten. That's not enough to dig yourself out of a 4-6 hole.
Yeah. This game potentially might be game of the year so far. Steelers Commanders. How about Russell Wilson winning this game on a hard count? This game was back and forth. This is a fun one to watch, no doubt about it. But a little bit of a controversial call with Zach Ertz right there on the line, where or not, he was down and then he got touched, but then he was spinning around to try and make a play. I don't know. This is a fun game to watch, but the Steelers win the game against the Commanders, and the Steelers team, there's something different about them.
I feel like now we kind of know where the Commanders are, because I thought that both these teams look evenly matched. So I think we have a better idea of the kind of teams we're talking about when we look at Pittsburgh and Washington. It really did come down to the wire. I thought Zach Ertz was short. I thought that when he caught the ball, he had a first down, and then his momentum carried him back.
I
And
agree.
he went to a knee and tried to pivot across the line, and he got touched before he got the ball there. It was very close. I thought the call was correct. And then Russ winning on the hard count. On the other podcast I'm on, Johnny Newton, the guy who jumped, was my player to watch because he has been up and down. He was terrible. He's a rookie out of Illinois, defensive tackle. He was bad to start the year. Then he turned it on a little bit. He was a big part of them beating the Bears. And he had a bad rookie moment in a bad spot. But I think what we learned about the Commanders is Jaden Daniels is really, really good. We know this. But if you can keep him in the pocket, he could not run this game. I think he had like 3 attempts for 5 yards. They took away the scrambling ability. They collapsed the pocket on him. You can kind of limit the Commanders' offense where obviously they have Terry McLaurin, who's awesome. But then your next best pass catchers are Noah Brown and Olamide Zaccheaus, who muffed 2 punts in this one. So the special teams are bad for Washington. And obviously they have defensive limitations as well. Marshawn Lattimore, the guy they got at the deadline, he did not play. So it was a cornerback room whose best player is Benjamin St. Juste, if you ever heard of him. Good win for the Steelers. They're just looking more and more legit every week.
Russell Wilson looking good in the
Mike Williams catching a big touchdown. I mean, we figured that he'd be a good guy to have because Russ likes to throw the deep ball. Made the play. So did George Pickens with a crazy catch.
Yes, it was a great game all around. Like you said, we learned a lot from both teams. Another game that was just crazy, uncharacteristic, but the Lions somehow find a way to beat the Texans, and I guess you can maybe say they beat them by a matter of inches. That ball just barely squeaked inside the left upright, but Jared Goff, 5 interceptions. I don't know if he's had 5 incompletions all season long, but boy, 5 interceptions, just so uncharacteristic of him. Only had 1 interception coming into this game, but Jake Bates walks away with it with a big walk-off field goal, and the Lions just find ways to get the job done against the Texans team that seemed like they just handed this game to them.
5 Jared Goff picks was not on my bingo card for this game.
No doubt
now, 2 of them were tipped up. I think the first one of the game, he was trying to fire it to the flats, and one of the defensive ends for the Texans gets a hand on it. The other one, he gets hit from behind. It's kind of like a strip sack. It gets popped up into the air and falls into the hand of a lineman. And then the third interception, he was kind of just it was like a Hail Mary, except instead of a Hail Mary, it's like deep crossers or whatever. Time was running out on the half. Then in the second half, I thought he looked a little rattled. He threw legit picks. He just overthrew I think he overthrew one and he underthrew the other. But the Lions are just so tough and resilient. The run game worked when they needed to. And this Lions defense, they bottled up C.J. Stroud. This defensive line that we were really worried about when Aiden Hutchinson got home, they made a big impact. And they got some turnovers on Stroud, who doesn't turn the ball over much.
Mm-hmm. And a team that didn't have Zadarius Smith yet. So wait till you add him on that pass rush. And this is just, I mean, the Lions are just a good football team, and the Texans are too, but the Texan defense just seems like they're really holding this team down right now. But boy, the Lions could be the best team in football right now, and it'd be awesome to see that team in a Super Bowl come February.
You know that random defensive tackle that the Texans traded away at the deadline, Khalil Davis?
Yeah.
You know, he's a third or fourth defensive tackle on most teams. He was this team's best run stopper. And they traded him away before they were going up against Detroit. I don't know. I think that kind of puts you behind the 8 ball immediately when it's going to be a nightmare stopping Jahmyr Gibbs all night. Big win for the Lions, who just continue finding ways. And C.J. Stroud, awesome quarterback. He's still a young player.
Yeah.
He's going to have mistakes. They need Nico Collins back in a hurry because right now Stroud doesn't have anyone he can trust.
Yeah, it seems like the weapons, and obviously Stephon Diggs done for the year, so they need something. And Tank Dell was he was their guy last year, and seems like he kind of needs to get stepped up a little bit in the situation. But good Texans team didn't quite get the job done against a great Lions team, and both teams I'm sure we'll see in the playoffs, just like the Steelers and Commanders. A couple of good games as we round out our NFL weekly recap. Let's get a little Monday Night Football. We got a fun one this coming up here in a matter of, I don't know, half hour to an hour.
Just about.
Dolphins, Rams. I mean, Dolphins team that's coming in 2-6. Rams sitting there at 500. They're looking to get hot. They got their guys, Puka and Cooper Kupp back. Dolphins got their guy, Tua, back, and Tyreek Hill is a full go tonight. And this is a game that isn't really intriguing to me to watch, but it's got a lot of potential.
I actually am kind of excited about this game because I think these are two teams that kind of got their seasons ripped away from them early. I think if the Dolphins have Tua the whole year, they're maybe, I don't want to say 6-2, but I think they're 4-4 at worst. I think this is a good, fun offense. Yeah. Devon Achane is one of the most explosive players in the NFL. And the Rams, they had no offensive line. They had Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua out. We know that this team is a whole different beast with those guys. They can run their offense a whole different way. I'm going to side with Miami. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I just like Miami's defense better than I like the Rams. I think what's going to decide this game is the wide receiver cornerback matchups. Jalen Ramsey maybe lost a step against Cooper Kupp, who certainly has not lost a step. They're going to be going at it in the slot. And then Puka and Kendall Fuller, who's maybe lost a couple of steps at this point out wide. If Matthew Stafford has a really, really good game, I think this one goes to the Rams. But otherwise, I'm going to go with Tua and the Dolphins with their backs against the wall. They need this win to keep any playoff hopes alive.
Yeah, last week with Tua first came back after his IR stint, saw maybe a little bit of rust, if that's what you want to call it. But this offense, it still, definitely looked better than what they had, but still didn't look like the normal Tua to Tyreek and Jalen Waddle connection that we've seen, in the past couple of years. But
they got to get Waddle going. I think that's big. That's Tyreek big. Did a little better. I think they put up 27 against Buffalo, so not a bad offensive day. But Waddle's been nowhere this season.
Yeah, I just think this is a game that they're able to get the job done. Rams defense, that's I would say they're probably in the upper half of the league, but this is a Dolphins game. I think the Dolphins are poised to have a big game, where I think the Rams too. I think they're a team that they're just trying to keep going and keep afloat in that NFC West with a lot of teams. The Cardinals got the job done. Niners won as well. This is a game that call it must win if you want. I mean, they just try and keep a state alive. I think the second half of the season is going to be just a neck and neck race in that division. But this is a game that I think's got the opportunity to turn into a shootout. I think both teams are in the 30s by the end of this one. I'm excited for it just because he took the Dolphins. So I'm going to go with the Rams. I got Puka sitting on my bench in one of my leagues.
What are there like 6 people in that league?
It's an 8-man league. Bench? It's an 8-man league. Yeah. I do have a pretty loaded team, I will say, but that league, it's our family league, and I did play Jamar Chase, and so that's a tough one. But good day out of Puka. He might find the starting lineup. I have the luxury that I got. I got pretty much Malik Neighbors and Terry McLaurin and Puka, David Montgomery, and J.K. Dobbins to select from to play between the wide receivers and the flex spot. And so Puka might find his way into the roster, and we'll see. But I'm not to brag, but I was 0-4 in that league. I've won my last 5 games now. I'm 5-4, and probably not going to win this week though. But if it wasn't for Jamar Chase, I'd be 6-4 and won 6 of 6. Going into it, but not to brag. Anyways, there you go. Monday Night Football. We got a fun one on ESPN tonight. I'm not sure if there's a Manicast or not, but that was always something fun. I actually watched one of those last week. I usually watch the main broadcast, but there you go. That's all we got today here on this Veterans Day Monday. That's Elsen Gratz, Ethan and Elsen. So thanks for joining us. We'll be back Wednesday to preview the entire sports weekend as we get to it. We're getting to it in college football, getting down to the thick of things, and NFL is getting interesting. We're getting close to that Thanksgiving kind of threshold in NFL, and a lot of good things happen in the football world. We'll see if Belleville can stay alive another week and make their way. They'll be, I guess Wednesday we won't know yet, but this weekend, one more win. Belleville's playing at Camp Randall Stadium. How about that? Ethan Rose, Elsen Grass, River Podcast, episode 53. We'll talk to you Wednesday. Thank you, veterans, and have a great rest. So this is where